And so it looks like it says our Hangout air is on live. So Wednesday morning, coffee talk, open flip. Kate Baker will join us a few minutes later, as usual. And we have Amy, who's joining us in the course, and Laura Gogia. I got your name right this time. I had to look it up from last time. And Raj Bora joining us from Edmonton. So I'll send out some tweets here, and I'll let people introduce themselves, and we'll start with Amy, then Laura, then Raj.
My name's Amy Alvis. I was a teacher for 18 years, grades 5 through 8, and I just recently moved to the IT department with the district I taught in for 18 years as their trainer. So
there's some commonality there.
I'm Laura Gogia. I just finished my PhD in connected learning. I was looking at some alternative assessment practices that could be done in digital spaces in higher education around connected course designs. And I am transitioning in my jobs right now. I was a graduate fellow at Academic Learning Transformation Lab at BCU, and next week I'm going to be a research fellow for the Division of Learning, Innovation, and Student Success, still at BCU.
Awesome. And Raj?
I'm Raj Bora. I used to be with the University of Alberta and did some interesting work there with what we called way back then hybrid learning. And that was a mix of live and online learning where students could basically flow back and forth however and whenever they wanted. So it wasn't quite 100% flipped, but it was different. And now I'm in workplace learning, and this is kind of sort of where the flip model really needs to happen. We can't necessarily have people come to training and learn everything in training. We need to be able to get people talking when they're together and get the basic information when they're out in the field, actually doing whatever they do.
Excellent. Yeah, John has a lot to talk to about workplace training, flip, John Bergman as well, so you should take a look at what he's written about that. Kate joined us for a second, but she popped out, so I guess she'll go back in. So maybe I'll start with Amy and what you're thinking about for your first stab at flipping in terms of flipping your activities as well as the faculty you're working with.
Well, one of the things that I really want to push with the new training, we did a computer refresh with all the schools, and they got all new laptops and iPads, and so I really want to push the technology integration, and I really think flipped and blended learning will fit real well with that. We're also adopting a new LMS where I would like to do maybe some flipped learning with the PD with the teachers. So.
Okay. Laura, what's your thoughts, or are we going to just go sideways already?
Oh no, I'm processing.
You're processing?
Yeah.
Then I'll go back to Raj while you process.
I got to process.
How do you get started planning? Like a lot of things I talk about, Raj, is how much to plan, whether you just jump into flipping and do your whole course flipped, or do an activity, see how it goes, and reflect on it. What's your thoughts there?
I think baby steps are the way you've got to go, because in a classroom environment, you're lucky you've got a group that they might not want to be there, but they kind of sort of have to. They're not self-selected, and there isn't necessarily something else they could be doing with their time. Whereas if you're in a more workplace environment, a lot of these people are self-selected, and if you don't get it right the first time, you don't have that opportunity to make that mistake again on a grand scale. So baby steps into flipping is definitely the way to go. So
that's an interesting thought. I was just thinking as well about the ones that are thinking about doing something different in their classroom, whether it's flip or blogging with their students. We'll go there in a sec. Whether they should do that at the beginning or in the middle of the semester or term, or when to jump into these kind of changes with your pedagogy during your classroom sessions. So maybe someone has a thought on that.
I would definitely do it in the middle. In my workshops that I do, they're one-shot workshops, and we're moving them towards actually being a workshop for for the past several years, they've been more lecture than anything else. But what I'm trying to do is somewhere in the middle, do something which gets them to be in charge of that one small section of the day. And so that's my little flip, where all these ideas that they have that they come into, then we go and discuss towards the middle, rather than me talking for the whole morning and then the whole afternoon. They actually get a little bit of control. And I'm trying to build that out towards the whole day, but it's difficult. That way, at least for my group, they come in, they're comfortable with the established learning pathway, they feel comfortable, they realize the space is safe, and then they try a little bit, and if they like it, it might go longer, but then we flip back to the more traditional, formal setup towards the end to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. In a regular classroom, if I was teaching in high school, I'd take a day in one of the weeks and just flip that. Like every Wednesday is flipped. So you go out there and get all the material first, and then we come back and we talk about it. Or
That's
we
great.
build on it, or we do something crazy with it.
And that's kind of linked to the 20% time. Maybe that's what you're going to do with your 20% time. And that's why I'm always curious about K-12 and how a lot of them tend to see their students every single day, whereas I have them twice a week, so there's kind of a timing issue that I have there. Kate, I think we can hear you, so you can say hi.
Hello. Yeah, it like locked up on me before, so I had to. I don't know if you saw me pop in because I tried getting in and then it like locked, and I was like, okay, I'll just come back to this in a minute.
Good job. So we're talking. One topic we just brought up was when to. If you're going to insert flipping as a partial or any change to your pedagogy, what should you do at the beginning, in the end of your semester or school year, or how to insert a change to your classroom?
I look at it as like a lesson. You can start in the middle. Look at your unit, whatever your unit is, and then maybe pick one lesson that you can flip and start there, and then expand it to 2 or 3 lessons, and then, you know, as kids kind of get the feel of it, you can expand it and, you know, make it a full week's worth of flipping, and then a full semester worth of flipping, you know, because the other thing, too, you have to keep in mind is that you're training your students that they've done the traditional mode of school for so many years, and they're used to that. So there's a little bit of retraining process. So whether you start at the very beginning of the school year or mid or end, I don't think matters. It just, you know, starting with one lesson is a good place to go.
Can I ask
I say we start them all in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Laura raised her hand. We'll go to Laura.
Yeah. So do you guys talk to your students about why you're flipping? Like why it's important, or what makes it different, or why it's beneficial, or like do you have that kind of meta discussion with them?
I'll leave my answer. Go ahead, Kate. I talk
about autonomy with my students. I don't really use the word flipping necessarily, but I'll use words like priorities, prioritize, schedule, autonomy, and I'll give them, like, for an introduction to like mastery flip, we'll take, you know, I'll take like a week, and on Monday I'll introduce the objectives, and I'll say, okay, here are 4 tasks that you need to get done by, say, Wednesday. Autonomy, you schedule, figure out what you need to do when, advocate for yourself, ask for help as I come around the room, make sure you speak up, and make sure that you're staying on task to finish by Wednesday. And then like Thursday could be like class review day, and then Friday could be like an assessment day. And that's if you're following like a 5-day schedule, you know, or weekly plan. But I try not to get them bogged down in the jargon, but instead talk about like what terms or adjectives or nouns that would most relate to my high school students. So I'm getting them acclimated to like work ethic skills. Does that make sense?
Now, how about if you're working in a faculty development type situation where you're flipping for professional development?
I think you could use the jargon, but you have to be careful because if they're coming in with misconceptions about it, that, oh, well, flipping's all about the video. Flipping is replacing the teacher. That you have to counter those misconceptions first.
Although, yeah, maybe having that discussion first, where you are challenging the misconceptions, would be a good idea, and then trying it out.
Yeah, and just kind of getting their prior knowledge on it. You know, what do they know about flipping, getting the pulse of that group, and then progressing forward.
Interesting. I haven't thought about that before. And I'm doing this a lot, Laura, where I'm working with faculty. And I think a lot of us that are in this flip class community are lone wolves, and we're a lot of us doing things ourselves. And then people are like, oh, what's this kind of crazy thing you're doing? Or we get a reaction in our colleagues that the students get all excited, and then they're telling their other teachers, why aren't you doing this crazy stuff that Ken Bauer is doing? And then I get in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you know, I get some pushback in my work. I mean, I don't work with flipping classes, but sometimes I get pushback because almost everything I do is kind of on a metacognitive level. Like for me, it's always about the why, and it's because as a learner myself, I'm not going to do anything, like nothing. I do nothing unless I know why. So for me, that's my go-to place to start. But so I like hearing what other people do, because I'm starting to realize not everyone needs to know why on everything. That's
That's what I've been reflecting a lot too. That everyone's not like me. I'm not normal.
No, everyone is like me. Everyone should be.
Ken, you are normal. You just have to redefine normal. No, I find you guys are all really lucky that you can use terms like that. I have to basically sneak all my stuff in, because if I'm talking to a bunch of administrators, they're not going to care about the pedagogical basis of what I'm doing this, that, and the other thing on. They just know that they're here for their PD for the 2 times a year that I touch base with them. And if I can get something to stick in a really effective manner, then that's what I do. So I've brought in little things. One of my things right now is the Red Solo Cup. So I'm hoping everybody understands what a Red Solo Cup is.
Nope.
Those party drink glasses.
I was going to say,
I know what a Red Solo Cup is.
I got some down here.
Now, every single time they see that, there's a certain process that I've associated with that. And so now all I have to do is bring up the Red Solo Cup, and everybody knows what I'm doing. And everybody remembers what they do with that and in context. And so then we can talk about that. So I'm using tricks like that from psychology to pull out things from their own actions to pull that back into the workshop later on. And it's really, really insidious.
How do you use the Red Solo Cup? I'm curious.
You're teasing us, Rob.
I know, I want to know more.
A really good Saturday night, so.
Well, yeah. Remember, I deal with adults exclusively.
Right.
So all my training is around pensions, and I use the cup as an analogy for service year. And you get cups in different sizes, so people can have different amounts of service that they require in order to get a full year of service, right? A full Red Solo Cup. And if they don't get the full year, then they get a partial cup. So if they didn't work the whole year, then they only get half a cup or 3/4 of a cup. And that's a really effective tool for people who are brand new to pensions and pension administration to understand, okay, this is what this one critical piece, this one critical information nugget is in our world. And so as soon as they get that, a whole bunch of the other stuff becomes easier. And the way it seems to work is there's also a really honky-tonk sort of song that goes along with it. I won't unleash that on you, but you can search YouTube for the Red Solo Cup song. But now every time they go and see a Red Solo Cup, they think about, oh, wait a second, that was in the workshop. And then that comes back again, oh yeah, we're doing this. So they remember those little pieces. And so pre-work is horrible in the workplace. Unless you absolutely have to do pre-work, nobody's going to do pre-work. So it's not the traditional flip. Because I can't ask my people to pre-read all this and then come back and we'll talk about it. It's pay attention to this, that's the best I can do. And then come back and we'll pull all those ideas back using these little tools.
So I'm hearing some really important and interesting lessons here. It's like, first of all, you're adapting, so flipping is a practice, right? And you're adapting it to your context.
Yeah.
Which is like one really important thing, take-home thing for me from this Google Hangout is going to be that you don't have to follow the rules. You know, you need to adapt it for your context. You're also using that visual cue of the cup, so
Yeah.
kind of a multimodal. It's almost like an advanced organizer in some ways. You've got this like red solar cup, you bring it in.
It's completely an advanced organizer, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Amy, are you still there? Have you got something to jump in? I'm trying to distribute the load here.
It was kind of
How are you
interesting
working with teachers?
what was just said, because we did a survey about what teachers wanted training on, and we left places for them to leave suggestions, and one of them was that they would like online PD and then to be able to come back and discuss if they had any questions. But then what Raj just said made me start thinking, well, maybe they, made me wonder how many would actually watch the videos or do the activities I had them do before then coming and talking about it. So, because that was one of the things that I had thought about doing for upcoming PD for the next school year. So,
in my experience with, like for a while there, I was doing curriculum development for a nonprofit adult education program, and our adults, they're so busy, they wouldn't do a lot of reading. They would do short videos. They would do videos more so than reading. But a lot of it has to do with the expectations in the class. You know, they may not do it the first time, but the next time when they come in and they see that they're not going to get much out of the discussion unless they've seen the video or done something. I think a lot of it has to do with expectations, and if they're going to be uncomfortable in the setting without having done the pre-work, then they make some time for the pre-work. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, and I just want to say that in education with an elementary K-12, they've got to earn continuing ed points, and so that would be an incentive that you watch this, you come to the discussion, as long as you participate in it, that tells us you did what you're supposed to, and then we can award you those points, because those are something they have to earn to be able to renew their teaching license. So.
Yeah, you have to incentivize it some way, or if you can't incentivize it directly, you have to sew it into some part of their regular process. So there's not a whole lot of incentivization that I can do, but knowing that there are certain things that are fairly common across the province, I can hook into those sorts of things and try to use those as ways to extend that.
So has anyone thought about using blogging instead of coming together face-to-face every time for a conversation about whatever piece of content they've looked at? Have you thought about blogging responses to that?
So I have the answer because that's what we do a lot for this type of course.
And you always have the answers, right?
Someone else. No, I don't. I was going to add a whole bunch to what you're saying, but I'm tweeting out right now. I don't have to talk much today. This is great.
Well, I think with getting our new LMS, that I'm going to have some PD places, and we can have discussions there. So I think within that environment, because I know a lot of the teachers wouldn't want to set up a blog and do something like that, but just to do a discussion right there in the LMS, I think most of them would, because they're going to have to get into it anyways, because the grade book and everything's going to be there. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't have my people blog for obvious reasons, because, well, what are they going to blog about? But what I am exploring is potentially setting up Slack channels.
Mm-hmm.
So build a Slack team. And so when people have questions, they can ask it into the team, and then the team can answer. And if somebody finds solutions, they can post their solutions. And then we use this as sort of a knowledge base, a living knowledge base for these people. So they might not necessarily reflect in the traditional learning paradigm, but what they're doing is they're giving their accounts of their experiences. And then by sharing those experiences, perhaps somebody else can carry on from that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've used Slack. I've used Slack in a couple of different contexts, and it's great. My one personal complaint about it is it's very difficult to have threaded discussions in it. It's kind of flat in that respect, and that really bugs me because I like to go deep and shallow all at the same time. Yeah, but no, both of those sound pretty good. Thanks.
Alex,
I'm pretty curious. I'm just
Alec
curious
Corsora was talking about Slack this morning and asking people to using it, so I'm just answering him and pointing him to you, Laura.
Yeah,
Raj,
I saw
take a look at
one
that.
tweet from him, and
on Twitter is Mahabali, does a lot of stuff in Slack.
Yay!
There's a bunch of different Slack channels going on at the same time in a bunch of different contexts. So she's
How does that not surprise me?
yeah. So she's a great person to talk to about Slack.
Excellent. I'm tweeting that out right now as we go. One thing that you brought up, Laura, was the point of, I can't remember if it was Laura, it was Amy, about the idea that you can't expect them to get it right away of watching the video or watching the content beforehand because of expectations, preconceived expectations that we have in learning. And I think all of us talk about that are deeply embedded in this flipping community, that we have to gain our students' trust. They're so used to not reading the book because I don't need to, because if I don't read the book, I just go to class and my teacher's going to regurgitate it all in class, and they're going to give me the PowerPoints I can look at later if I don't pay attention during class. So there's no value add to doing the work pre-class. And it takes a while for them to get, oh yeah, he's not going to do that or she's not going to do that. And there is value to doing the pre-class work. And so we see that all the time. And I think it just takes time for people to get it. Go ahead, Kate.
That's why I recommend the in-class flip to get started. So why, until they get an understanding of how the workflow is, why not have them watch or, do the flip in class first, and then that just maybe the first session, for those of us that are working with adults or those of us who are working with students, the first couple of days are in class so they get a feel for it, and then you say, okay, now this is what you're doing tonight when you come in. This should be done. These are the expectations, and you've made it explicitly clear as to what you want the kids or colleagues to be doing in it prior to the next session.
Cool. I'm thinking about Slack too much here. Keep going.
There's a couple of thoughts there. One of the things that we've really gotten away from, and this is, I think, as a grand society since the Industrial Revolution, the continual learning has gone by the wayside. All we do is we figure out how to make the next widget, and then the next partial widget comes up, and we build that widget up, and the next partial widget comes up, and that's what our education system's about.
Yeah.
Because we've taken away the continual learning element, that's what makes Flip so hard. If we had that continual learning all the time, Flip wouldn't be hard at all. You take a look at these communities that have continual learning as a hub, so say accountants or the medical profession. They're out there, they're doing whatever it is. They're continually learning because they have to. And then when they get together, they can synthesize and analyze and argue and do all that. But because we've taken that away and put it into this little side place, I think that's where our challenge is coming, because as soon as we get out of basically Div 1, grade 2, 3, we say, okay, no, here's the next widget. You just learn how to do your math tables and make sure you do this. And that, I think, has become a real problem for us.
No, and everything's so compartmentalized, too. Whether it's a class period or a unit, like we really have compartmentalized education instead of letting it be more fluid. So it's not just like the learning time period of the content, it's all of it. That continuation is always happening, which I think is what makes the flip learning community so unique, because we've progressed beyond that compartmentalization. That we definitely are fluid in our learning and in our communication and working with each other and see beyond those boundaries and try to make flipping work beyond, the confines of the structures that we're given to deal with. Did you get all that, Ken? I saw you.
My brain's just blowing up. I'm linking too many things together right now. Like my class I'm taking as faculty right now in competency-based education, where we're trying to basically blow away the courses in our university. So there's a whole bunch of links that are firing in my head. I might have to blog now, Laura.
Well, and I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, okay, well, great, we need to blog across these classes in a longitudinal fashion and do some categories and tags and hyperlinks and just connect it all. So I'm having my own, like, you know.
I'm having a party over here with my solo cup.
Yes.
That I can't find. Oh boy.
Well, here's another idea. Everybody's familiar with Unconference, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do all this stuff in the back, you do all your pre-work essentially in the back, and then when you finally actually meet up with somebody at a conference, you don't do all the work again. You hash out all those little details that you can't fit in 140 characters or are just too lazy to type out after you shuttle the kids around for 6 hours. You know, it's Flip. There's a whole lot of places where Flip shows up.
Right. And I know that because I just, talked lots with Kate before I met her at a conference, the Flip Learning Conference. And Laura's got a lot to talk about how people presenters should talk about their talks before they get to the conference.
Oh yeah, I've presented with people I've never met before the conference. Like, we put proposals together before we ever met. So that's where the whole, like, Twitter, blog, Google Plus, Google Hangouts, Google Docs, you can piece together your digital platforms in order to have really rich, multidimensional conversations and do what you need to do before you get into a place where you're physically in the same room.
Yeah, no, right now I'm actually doing this with a group for the Institute for Performance and Learning here in Canada. And we're putting together a presentation. We've all met at the last conference, and some of us had contact previously. But through this whole year, we're working together using our Slack community to build up this presentation, which until we potentially meet up the day before or the hour before, the morning before, we won't have actually put together.
Yeah, I went out on Twitter and actually just advertised for someone to present with me, because I was sick and tired of doing it by myself. So I'm just on Twitter. I'm like, who wants to present with me on this at this conference? And I came up with 2 people who are now very good friends, and we're continuing to collaborate, and it's become a really rich relationship. But no, this has been a really interesting talk, Ken. I'm so glad I showed up, because I'd never really thought about this idea of mixing and matching these digital platforms as being a form of flipping. Like, I'd never actually made that connection before. So.
I'm glad I can help. I've realized a lot over the last year. My role in a lot of things is connecting people, and that's why I've migrated to connected courses and that community, and it's all just kind of, my brain's having a big party here about a lot of thoughts. So this has been awesome.
As soon as we're done here, I gotta add something about flipping to my whiteboard. So.
Great.
I'm looking over there. It's because I need to put something about you on the board.
Kate says Malcolm Gladwell there in the chat.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the mavens, the connectors, that's, the salespeople, that's all of those. That's what we all are. Especially the connector piece, I definitely identify with that. If I don't know something, speaking of like crowdsourcing a presentation, some of the work I've done with digital reading, connected with Curriculate and Troy Hicks, and we kind of crowdsourced last year's Councils of Teachers of English conference, where we did a session on digital reading and the issues associated with that. But it's not just like, here, let me throw it out on Twitter. It was, okay, because I'm a connected educator and I see the stream of what's going on, I have an idea of who to tap and who to say hey and reach out to. No different than I'm sure that you do with this, Ken, with our OpenFlip stuff of, not just throw it out there, throw the line out, but then say, here, I'm going to hook you, and you into it.
Mm-hmm. And in my research, we call that targeted mentioning. Yeah, I mean, I guess I should have added, like before I threw it out on Twitter, is that I've actually cultivated a community on Twitter where I could throw it out there, because
right.
it meant throwing it out there to a targeted community, like you said.
And that's really important. I remember I was teaching some faculty about resources and mentioning using Twitter, and how my colleagues say, Twitter's a waste of time. I can't waste my time on Twitter. And I say, well, but I save so much time by using Twitter. And George Koros jumped in and said, hey, wait a minute, Ken. Our use of Twitter is very different to the neophyte who just jumped into Twitter. And you got to be really careful about the fact, like the word you used, Laura, you've cultivated a group of people that follow you and you follow, and we can use it in a different way. And it's the same thing here. I'll let Amy talk in a second, because it's really important to me that we develop this comfort. In the course we did with the University of Guadalajara with Alan Levine and Nancy White and Tanis and Brian and I'm going to get stuck on some names. But it took us 10-week sessions of Google Hangouts, and it took us till about week 6 to get the educators from the University of Guadalajara to jump in with us in these Google Hangouts. And so that's why I'm really happy that Amy joined us today, because this is her second Google Hangout, and the first one was this morning when I did a test. So I want to hear about what her thoughts are here.
Well, just, I will say that since I've joined this class, I've definitely started tweeting a lot more. But I think it's kind of, I've been able to, hook up with other educators and start following others that are flipping just to learn things, and I was able to, connect with a local flipper who then I went to his school and was able to observe, some of his classes. Unfortunately, I'm still trying to find a lot of primary, or elementary teachers trying to do it, but I don't know, maybe I can do the lead and get our elementary teachers doing it, so then people can come and observe in our classes. So.
We'll get you hooked up, but like it happens to a lot of us, we end up being the leaders after being followers.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I like your code.org bottle at the back there. It's advertising time, Kate. I'm advertising Edmonton because Raj is with me.
I went to a good training. It was a Saturday training. I'm looking forward to the advanced class this summer. So.
Excellent. So I'll let people wrap up. Amy kind of wrapped up there. Kate's chewing on something, so I'll let Raj wrap up, and then Laura. Kate can tell us what she's eating.
Well, I think one of the last things that we mentioned was being connected as trainers and teachers. I think we have to really also take a look at how we're connecting our students, and that's the big thing on Flip for me, and that's why I want to use or try this thing with Slack with my community, is if we as the former sages on the stage can connect with each other and get ideas, we need to make sure that we model that effectively for our learners, and that they can also understand that reaching out and connecting with people makes them better learners. Nobody now, and this is the great Connectivism call to arms, nobody now can be an effective island as a learner or a teacher. If you don't connect, if you don't know how to network, you're dead in the water for both.
Excellent. My
I
mind's
don't feel
blowing
like
up.
I need to say anything after that.
Just a big hug. You can pimp your blog in your work, Laura, because part of why I called you in here is because you just posted your blog post this morning.
Well, I did post a blog post that fits in really well to some of the things that we've been talking about, as far as blogging as a form of both the personal learning network, which is kind of what we've been talking about just now, as far as cultivating a network of people who are both resources and places where you can receive feedback, and all those things that we've been talking about on Twitter, but also as a place for, as part of an e-portfolio system, where you are using different platforms to help make connections across different parts of your lives, which kind of gets back to the conversation we were having about integrating across different courses and
continuous learning.
Right, and so I would argue that a blog space plays a very important role in both of those learning strategies, because it's a place where you can put your call to action. It's a place where you can do your reflections. It's a place where you can use those tags and categories and hyperlinks to make connections and try to figure out what's going on with your own learning experience. You know, when you're trying to collaborate and you can't do it in the 140 characters, you need a place where then you can go back and have like a longer form thought. That's your blog. It's a personalizable space. If you're outside of a learning management system, it's a place that the student owns or the practitioner owns, or you know, it's person owned versus institution owned. You can make it look however you want it to look. You can structure it however you want to structure it. It becomes a very useful personal sandbox that you can use in a lot of different ways.
Yep.
So that's kind of my plug for blogging, both for faculty and for students. I mean, I do not work in the K-12 sector. I know there's a lot of stuff going on there that I can't even speak to, but especially in terms of faculty development or professional development for adults, having a personal blog space is a good idea, I think. So, and I've written that all out in long form. It's the longest blog post I've ever written. I experienced.
And I've only scanned it, and I'm linking it all over the place. I scanned it before I linked, of course, because I do that. But I need to go back and read it.
Well, it's huge and long because I try on different types of blog posts. I mean, again, that's one of the beautiful things about having a blog is that you can try different things. And so I tried a more formal article approach this time to see how people would like that, or how
so
I
would. Don't get scared if it's the first blog post you've read in a long time. It doesn't have to always be that big.
No. I've never written a blog post like that before in my life.
That was huge.
Find it out. So anyway, that's what I have to say about that.
And Kate, I know you're running up on time as well, and you just linked something.
Yeah, I'm going to tweet it out.
Awesome.
Right now. So all of Laura's comments about blogging reminds me of my buddy Chris Bronke and others who run this national blog collaborative. They're not necessarily flippers, but it's just the whole notion of being a connected educator and a reflective educator that you put it out there. And another thing to kind of piggyback on that notion of connectiveness is if blogging's not your thing, or if you find Twitter too overwhelming, your learning management systems often have community spaces.
Right.
You know, speaking from experience, Edmodo's communities are great. I've got a lot of resources from the language arts community, and being able to just kind of throw ideas out there and get, connections back from them. So it's a bit more of an enclosed, targeted audience if you use your community groups there. And today's OpenFlip has been brought to you by Faith Pita Chips.
Thank you, Kate. This is our tradition for those of us that don't know.
Order.
Schoology also has a good forum sections for educators talking to each other, and I know John Bergman's pretty active in there. I haven't been there for a long time because I'm not using Schoology, and I went out to just using blogs for all my courses. But I know they have a good resource as well. All right. Anything to add before we finish, Amy?
No, and my phone is ringing, so I'm going to have to go and catch that. So.
All right, I'll let everyone go. Thank you so much. This has been mind-blowing. We do this every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, and we're doing it as well Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Anyone's welcome to join us. I'm always looking for people, and I pulled you all together at the last minute, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you again so much. And now I got to go write all my notes.
Thank you. See you
Cheers.
guys.
Thanks. See you guys.